That day, many Lyrians perished, either to the dragon's all-consuming fire or to its flesh-rending claws. Yet their sacrifice was not in vain. Together with the dwarves, they were able to grievously wound Celtulis, forcing him to flee. The howls of the wounded monster rang throughout the valley.
That's right, howl, you scurvy snake! Shouldn't he ever attacked us, eh? Damn fuel lizard!
Meave, that's Vavrenik, elder of the town and all the Ferences.
My regards and condolences.
Eh, tain't so bad. If nae for ye, wouldn't there be a stone left unrubbled? To be honest, when I caught wind some human queen come to Mahakam looking for aid, I said a crocus would sprout twixt my cheeks afore I'd vote aye on that. Gonna be a fear to look in my breeches after, but changed my mind. After what I saw today, what ye did for us, you've the support and undying gratitude of all Ferences.
Thank you. Faced with a Nilfgaardian peril, that means a great deal.
Forgive me for interrupting this tear-tugging scene of interracial reconciliation, but I can't hold back no longer. Vavrenik! Double shice! What happened? Why'd Celtulis attack?
I ken as much as ye, meaning squat diddly. Just flew up, started spewing flames, half the town lit up in a flash.
Sheepshank! 300 years I've been a good neighbour.
What's done's done. Got to think about the future. The Drake's just taking a breather. Gotta finish him off for he's regained form.
Meaning we haven't much time. He heals like an alchemist's pup. And the nearest guards are miles away. He'll be up flying again before they get here.
Aye, that's what I thought. Perhaps, your grace, you'd,
What? Jest you must.
I ken you're tired frae the fight, dinna want to risk casualties, etc. But remember, the beast's sleeping on a bed of gold and rubies. All belonging by right to Bruther, of course. But if quibbling some wandered off, he'd nae notice.
I admit that does alter my calculations. Besides, the dragon was badly wounded.
Putting it featherly, blood poured out of him like a leaky bladder. Just needs a coup de grace.
Fine. I'll do the deed.
Ken you'd see the light.
Oi, Vavrenik, Vavrenik. This lady's gonna make your rump a regular crocus garden.
Aye, Queen's doing us a great service. One that'll profit us both.
So, where is Celtulis's lair?
Not through here. It's a vast cavern. Ye canna miss it.
Meave bid farewell to Vavrenek and set out on her way. Did her way lead to the dragon's lair, you ask? Shh. Let's not spoil the surprise. Celtulis' lair was indeed impossible to miss, as would stand to reason, for any space capable of containing a dragon must be enormous. The lair's maw, a black triangle cut out of a vast plain of snow, loomed from afar. Confirming the dragon's presence was the powerful odor emanating from it, one of sulfur and blood.
Well then,
Gascon said.
ready to become a legendary dragon slayer?
My father oft said, never should you count pelts till the hunt is through.
Meave said, dismounting her horse.
It's all the more true when you hunt dragons. He's wounded, yes, but one puff of flame, and we shall be not legends but corpses. Leave all thoughts of foolhardy bravery behind.
The Lyrians crept across the dragon's threshold. They walked single file, shields raised, watched by bats hanging from the ceiling. Celtulis lay curled up on a bed of diamonds and gold coins turned red from his blood. Seeing how he strained merely to lift his massive head, Meave knew the dragon no longer posed any threat.
Come to finish what your poison began?
The monster croaked hoarsely.
Fine. Do it then.
Celtulis turned over, exposing his vulnerable underbelly, and waited calmly for the fatal blow.
Wait,
Meave said, dropping her sword.
what poison?
Keltalis laughed while squeezing his bleeding side in pain.
So they didn't tell you? Lousy munchkins.
Hey! Watch your tongue!
Gabor yelled.
Sides! I didn't ken anything about it.
Keltalis looked the Lyrians over mistrustfully with his snake-like eyes, then began to tell his tale. The caravan Meve had met on the road was different to the others. This time, Keltalis's meat had been pickled in a special brine, one spiked with poison. As the dragon lay curled up in pain, Ferenc dwarves entered his lair and smashed his eggs.
So if I understand correctly,
Meve interrupted.
you're female.
Correct. Same as you.
As if on command, all Lyrian eyes turned to Gabor.
Don't you look at me! We didn't peek under his, its tail.
If I may,
Reynard interjected.
these revelations about Keltalis's sex are undeniably fascinating. But I'm more curious why the Ferences stooped to such a dishonorable deed.
That's easy enough to guess.
Meve said.
They were afraid the dragon would soon demand more tribute to feed its young, so they decided to strike preemptively.
A wise and noble deed.
Ache cried.
Evil must always be nipped in the bud.
To the Ferences' misfortune, they delivered too small a dose of poison. Infuriated at the sight of the broken eggs, the dragon gathered its strength and flew to the nearest town. Meve saw for herself what happened then. And now it was up to her to decide how this story would end. The dragon had killed dozens, perhaps even hundreds, but had been provoked first by the dwarves' heartless cruelty. Did it thus deserve death or mercy?
When judging my subjects, I would sometimes not know who bore the greater guilt.
Said Meve.
But as ruler, I had to reach a verdict, often a harsh one.
The queen returned her sword to its sheath.
This is not my land,
Meve said.
nor are these my subjects. I don't have to choose the lesser evil.
Meve!
Gabor hissed.
Bruver'll be furious.
Let him. And you, dragon, swear me this. When you heal, you shall leave Mahakam and never return.
You've my word. And my gratitude.
Meve was about to leave the cavern when the dragon blocked her way with its tail, then gathered a smattering of valuables at the queen's feet. Each would be the prize of the Lyrian crown jewels. News that Meve had spared the dragon, which had killed dozens of dwarves, did indeed enrage the inhabitants of Mahakam, the Ferences in particular. But when the clans considered driving the Lyrians from the pass, Elder Vavrenek opposed it. No matter what happened after, he had sworn Meve his undying gratitude.
Your Grace, 'tis not right.
Calm down, Sir Ake. What's the problem?
The deed you've committed, most foul. As the good book says, whosoever standeth idle in the face of evil proveth guilty of the same. Know that I never stand idle. Yet I cannot stop you from doing so. Thus I must leave. I refuse to play any part in the wickedness you perpetrate.
Sir Ake.
Farewell, Queen, and may the gods have pity on your soul.
Meve squinted, the better to see the scene. Several dozen dwarves had gathered on the cliff overlooking the chasm. All were turned towards a ramp, at the peak of which stood a barrel.
What is that gathering about?
Asked the queen.
Have we a feast day?
Nay,
Answered Gabor grimly.
'tis an execution.
A hairy head peeked out of the barrel. The long, pointy nose and ears left no doubt that it belonged to a gnome. The first Meve had ever seen in her life.
Help! Save me!
The gnome yelled.
They aim to kill me! Cast me in the chasm!
Shut your maw!
Barked the dwarf standing next to him, who then shoved the gnome inside the barrel and covered it with a lid.
Your crimes! The sheer weight of them, hey? No lighter punishment is fitting!
The other gathered dwarves nodded approvingly. Two gripped the barrel, lay it on its side, then lifted it to cast in the chasm, paying the thumping from inside it no heed. Meve leapt from her horse and, ignoring Gabor's objections, scrambled up the ramp.
Oi! You're not allowed! Hey, damn it! What do you think they're doing?
I think it's obvious. Preventing the execution.
Thanks be to the gods!
Whoa, wench, you've no such right. Judgment's been handed down. Sentencing's done.
Yes, and a cruel sentence it is. One that prompts me to wonder what the accused did to deserve it.
Better to ask what he didn't do, the varmint. Arrived here with his peddler's wagon full of tricks and gadgets. Went from house to house, praised his rubbish to the high heavens. And what's it he sold us? Bombs that go off in your hand. Beer growth formula that makes your hair catch fire. Music boxes for the kiddies. Once cranked, they never plough in stop.
You needed but to loosen the screw in the back and...
Shut your maw, ye roaster. Doesn't it matter all that? 'Cause we'd have forgiven it if he hadn't broken our sacred rules and hallowed customs. Which ones, if you don't mind me asking? Enter the smithy, cap on his head, held nails between his teeth, and poured fruit syrup in his beer. Raspberry. Blech.
just the once, and but a few drops.
You got nothing to explain your villainy, scoundrel. Not a thing. And that's not even the worst. Saved his highest crime for the end. He was in a mine, and he whistled.
Oh, aye, that's bad. Shouldn't have done that.
Aye, he did. Whistled through his teeth and hummed in harmony a long warble. We all heard it up and down the shaft, and our grand-elders were clear. Death's the punishment. Death by barrel roll.
Your land, your laws, I shall not argue with them. But perhaps there is another way. Can a bail be posted?
Well, the law does allow for something of the sort. But I don't see how that job is worth it.
Oh, aye, he is, he is.
Willing I am to take him at his word. Does that suffice?
Aye. But just so's we're clear. No returns, no refunds. Now get the hell out of that barrel, you wee shite.
My lady, I haven't a way to thank you.
That we've yet to discuss. Perhaps first we should learn each other's names?
Aye, yes, of course. What a prat of me. Barnabas. Barnabas Beckenbauer. To friends, Bibi.
Meve, Queen of Lyria and Rivia.
Queen? Cows in the corn, call me honoured. Your Majesty, obeisance due.
None necessary. Protocols for use at court, not beyond it. An inventor you deem yourself. Am I right?
Most assuredly. Though, truth be told, the dwarves saw no ingenuity in my craft. Seems I'm ahead of my time.
Fiery bursts in the palm of your hand. They shall be in fashion one day, to your mind.
Oh, nay, just a bit of misfortune, that's all that was. You see, I mistook mercury fulminate for saltpeter. The vials stood beside each other, see, and...
The details I need not know. But one matter I am curious about. Could you construct a bomb that would explode when desired? For instance, beneath my foe's feet as they stepped over it.
Well, of course I can. It's simple.
Why then? You wish to show your gratitude? You must join my ranks. Assist me to defeat Nilfgaard.
Defeat Nilfgaard? Pure ambition, that is. But I'd have been a barrel of broken bones at the bottom of a ravine, if not for you. I'll do what you ask to pay off my debt.
And thus, for the first time in Lyrian annals, a gnome enlisted with the army. And though Barnabas Beckenbauer was diminutive of body, this new recruit would prove his worth on more than one occasion.
Your Majesty, allow me once again to express my undying gratitude.
You're most welcome, Barnabas, but please, we haven't need for any formalities when speaking alone.
Well, of course. How might I help you then?
I like to know. No, I must know who I travel with. Please do tell me about yourself.
About me? I've most civil relations with dwarves, as you saw. But is there anything in particular you'd like to know?
Why not start at the beginning? Tell me where you hail from, perhaps.
Oh, right. I was born in the distant south, in Tir Tokhair. My mother was a washerwife, my father, an armourer. Soon as I'd passed 40 winters and could strike out on my own, I left the family, my native parts. So I've been on the road now about, 20-odd years.
Indeed. A rather long while. Did the south simply not suit you?
Oh, I wouldn't say that exactly. It's just staying would have meant stepping into my father's shoes. Then forging blade after blade, plate after plate. Oh, just thinking on it sets my head a-spinning. Not for me, that, no. No, nature. The world so rich in mysteries, in wonders left to discover, and ways to make it a better place.
By building bombs that explode in the hand, for instance.
As those bearded fellas say, Mahakam wasn't built in a day. Besides, nobody was seriously hurt by those malfunctions. Not many, at any rate.
At the moment, have you any invention you've worked on? One that's near complete?
Oh, so kind. Oh, wonderful, you should ask. See, I've ever had an avian fascination. For birds, you see. Their wings, bones. The structure's perfect. The aerodynamicism, the plumage. In short, I believe I can fly.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, I'm learning to fly. Fly. You've not misheard. I, Barnabas Beckenbauer, will be the first gnome... what am I saying? The first mammal to free himself of the soil's bondage and soar to the clouds.
But aren't bats also?
Ha! A detail. This is no time to be petty. No, but frankly, my preparations are far advanced, and I'm rather optimistic about my design and prospects. I've calculated every trajectory, every force. It all works out. Just need to do a few more field tests.
Did you have volunteers try it, or did you test the design yourself?
Naturally, I must stay on the ground, who take all the measurements elsewise. Luckily, there's no lack of thrill-seekers in Mahakam. Most eager to etch themselves into the annals. My first prototype, the Skylicker, I dubbed it. Oh, Your Majesty, if you'd only seen the beauty. Flew over 120 Ls.
Truly? Colour me impressed indeed. He must have made quite the name for himself, your brave volunteer. I'm certain he's caught the eye of every she-dwarf in Mahakam since.
Oh no, he's dead. The landing, it was rough. And then a bear sauntered by, didn't help any. Anyhow, as he died, the dwarf swore he regretted nothing. Brave lad. A bit daft, though.
I see. But the next time you request I try one of your inventions, I'd ask you to remind me of this touching tale. Time I attended to other matters.
Yes, you're still here. Off you go, then.
Maeve rode on in silence, endeavouring to work out the length of her exile thus far. A scout's call tore her from her reverie.
Your Grace! You must see this!
With a grave mien, the soldier indicated a track in the snow. The hobnail boot print was all too familiar. Maeve had seen it before, upon Lyria's sandy tracks, and midst the ashes to which Edern had been turned.
Nilfgaardian footmen,
Seethed Maeve.
Marched through of late.
Interrupted Gascon.
A day, perhaps 2 days past.
The scouts had learned a Nilfgaardian caravan with an armed escort had recently arrived in Mahakam. The invaders had brought with them chests brimming with gold and jewels, then exchanged these for the finest Mahakaman-forged swords and spears. A scout gave Meave one of the coins the Blackclads had used for payment. Upon the coin's back, the Lyrian eagle.
They pay with gold from my vault.
The Queen said through gritted teeth.
For arms that will cut down my fighting men and subjects.
We might yet pursue and hunt them down,
said Reynard, a spark in his eye.
and make certain Ed Dahi never lays hands on those weapons.
You might, I can.
Piped up Gabor, who had been listening to their exchange.
But you might also recall, we Mahakamans are neutrals who assure all guests within our borders safety. True, formally speaking, the Nilfgaardians have passed outside them, but attack him a stone's throw from our gates, and you'll see Brewer's rage come out his ears as steam, and out his arse as fire.
No war's outcome has been swayed by a few wagons of arms, no matter their quality.
Said the Queen, vaulting into her saddle.
Yet if we turn Brewer against us, I dare say we shall never wrest our land from black-clad hands.
The Queen's men regretted her reluctance to attack, but none tried to dissuade her. They knew her too well. Meave squinted and gazed off into the distance. It seemed to her that hundreds of black patches covered the peaks on the horizon. Once she had ridden up closer, she realized these were the windows of homes carved out of solid rock.
Our pride this was,
Sighed Gabor.
Burra's Rump. A city carved out of mountain rock. Hundreds of miles of tunnels, dozens of steelworks, smithies and forges. Now, it's a vast lair to monsters. They ooze from underground, weave their nests, hatch their young, and when hunger hits them in the gut, they prowl down into the pass.
Meave stood at the entrance to the underground city. The monumental gate, cast in bronze, lay on the ground, folded multiple times as a scroll of paper. Out of blackened windows oozed a stench of rotting meat and mold. The Queen bent an ear to hear water dripping, and, in the distance, a metallic scraping. A sound akin to chitinous scales rubbing against rock.
The soldiers await your order, Your Grace,
said Reynard quietly, as if he feared he would wake the beasts asleep in the caverns.
Do you recall my words as we fled Lyria?
Said Meave, turning to Reynard.
You swore you would retake your crown, even if you had to penetrate hell to do so.
Time to follow that oath.
The Queen inhaled deeply and stepped forward, her sword raised and prepared to strike or parry. Moments later, it was swinging, biting, as the current tenants of Burrows Rump came out to meet her. Though wounded, Meave approached the Shaelmar, which lay writhing on the ground. She then ran her sword through its heart, finishing it. Yet so spent was she that she lacked the strength to pull her blade from between the plates of the chitinous armor.
The beast near took me.
She whispered.
It was very close.
The Lyrians reached a vast hall that had once served the clans as their meeting room. The stone benches were covered in sticky slime and insectoid eggs, while bats of varying size hung from the crystal chandeliers. Gascon rummaged through old, weathered bones, surely hoping to find something of value. Gabor, in turn, was at a shut and locked door, grappling with it as if it were a deadly beast. The door finally gave way with a sigh, and the dwarf raised his arms in a triumphant gesture.
It's a storeroom. Should hold miners' tools aplenty,
he said, enthused.
Some barrels of alchemical brews in here too. Lucky there's no sign of moisture. They haven't soaked through. Alls we've got to do is roll them out into the corridor and set a bit of fire to them, and whoomph! We'll have sealed the beasts off from the pass once and for all.
Meave treated the dwarves' instructions as hallowed. Soon after, the mountains trembled from a powerful explosion. Rubble came down and blocked the tunnels. They say the plumes of smoke escaping the window openings in the rock could be seen as far as Aldersburg. Dark clouds hovered over the horizon, and a strong gale snapped their banners.
Damn it, a storm's coming. Gabor! Take us to the nearest settlement. We must seek shelter.
Soon the Lyrians arrived in Stoolcap. The town square proved full of folk. Several dozen dwarves, laden with large sacks and satchels, stood about in smaller groups. When a thick snow began to fall, the dwarves cheered. Tears streamed down the cheeks of several, but Meave could not tell if they issued from some fortuitous occurrence, or if the strong wind had wrung moisture from their eyes.
What is it we witness? Why do they rejoice at a snowstorm?
Asked Meave, pulling her hood over her head.
Well, the Blizzard's good cause to postpone their expedition by another day.
Gabor responded.
See, they've been conscripted by drawn lots to be settlers. Found homes in a village in Blackbrook Vale. 7 expeditions have gone that way already, and none survived longer than a year. Valley's cursed. No two ways about it.
Intrigued, Meave proceeded to speak with the settlers' leader. He confirmed Gabor's claim. He had buried many a previous colonist. All had been abnormally thin, pale, prematurely greyed, as if some wraith had drawn the lifeblood out of them. Once the dwarf had finished his tale, he gripped the Queen's hand firmly, and promising a generous reward, begged that she and her Lyrians accompany the expedition to Blackbrook Valley.
Tain't far. Mere few leagues north along the main road. We'll make the march much easier to ken with the whole army, in case of any danger.
I know not how useful our swords can be against curses and spectres,
said Meave.
but leave you bereft and in need I will not. We shall march with you into Blackbrook Vale and see to it that you are safely arrived. Then we will march on.
The dwarf sped off to announce the good tidings to his settler brethren. By the time the blizzard had abated, they were ready to march. Meave had stopped and was removing packed ice from her mare's fetlocks when Gabor Zigrin approached. The dwarf squatted at the Queen's side, glanced about quickly, then started speaking in a barely audible whisper.
Your Majesty, I overheard some folk talking in the smithy. Birdies claim there's treasure, true riches, in the hills near Blackbrook Vale, south of here. Stowed away there. And nobody dares go looking for it on account of beasts that have made their lairs there. But you've got a wee army behind you. I reckon you could try. Might be worth the risk, eh?
The Queen brushed the snow from her knees and, raising a hand against the glaring sunlight, peered towards the mountains. Though tempted, she had doubts. To start, the rocky scree at their feet warned clearly of avalanches.
I shall think on it,
she answered, before vaulting into her saddle.
What is this place?
Blackbrook Vale.
Quite lovely.
Aye, and damned dangerous. Keep your arms at the ready.
Blackbrook Vale. The name itself embodied infamy. Meave arrived expecting misty ravines, decrepit trees bound in spiders' webs and swarms of bats. What she saw was a warmly gurgling stream and the valley's gentle slopes blanketed in crocus blooms. Only a village of abandoned, ruined huts and a cemetery stretching to the horizon behind it attested to the valley's grim past.
The village seems shrouded in a guise. Be not deceived,
said the Queen.
Reynard! Some men to search the environs for any sign of life.
The blood-curdling roar that came from the ruins a moment later proved the Queen's caution warranted beyond any doubt. Following the victory, the settlers' hopes seemed renewed. Could the beasts they felled have killed the previous lot of colonists? Perhaps the curse that had long hung over Blackbrook Vale was at last broken.
We thank ye, Your Majesty,
the settlers' leader said, slipping the satchel from his shoulder.
You've granted us new hope, and a new home.
The dwarves had rolled up their sleeves, were prepared to go at the huts to repair them, when one of their number cried out.
Hold! There's something here! Something reeky!
A voice most familiar, thought Meave. Yes, for it belonged to Barnabas, the rescued inventor. The gnome had elbowed his way to the fore, stood on his toes, extended his nose, and inhaled through it like a pointing hound seeking out wildlife. Ignoring all queries, Barnabas had then sat down on the brook bank, filled a glass flask with water, and was now holding it up against the sunlight, dipping into it the tip of his tongue and some strange scraps of paper extracted from the depths of the pockets of his patched coat. Finally, Barnabas stood, brushed his backside clean, and announced his findings.
Well, we know with some certainty the reason for the settlers' demise. 'Twere not beasts, no. They prowled in later, drawn by fresh graves. 'Twas the water. Oh, roll your eyes and whirl your fingers all you want, and then peer at the brook. Nary a fish. All poisoned by subterranean fumes.
The dwarves hemmed, hawed, and grumbled, and were a heartbeat from abandoning the Vale for good. Then Barnabas reached into his satchel and extracted a device of his own making he termed an aqua purificator. That is to say, a water cleaner, as odd as it may seem.
You need but siphon water through this straw. Then drink up, worry-free.
Thus Meve rode out of Blackbrook Vale, deep satisfaction in her heart. The dwarves extolled her for being bold, shrewd, and wise, while Gabor ensured this praise would likewise reach the meaty ears of Elder Hoog. The rumors Gabor had overheard were true. Scouts returned with news of a cavern at whose mouth lay rotted logs, an indication that something of great weight may have been rolled inside. Chests full of gold, for instance. Then again, paw tracks clearly showed some beasts had made the cave their home.
Right. Decision time. Enter or scramble back down,
said Gascon, rubbing his hands together for warmth.
Please hurry. This frost is downright biting.
We've scaled this high. Foolish we'd be to descend empty-handed. Fall in behind me!
The Queen took the fore, sword in one hand, torch in the other. The flickering flame's glow illuminated the cave's interior, casting long shadows. Meve was certain some horror would leap at her at any moment. And she was not at all wrong. As soon as the last beast had fallen, the Lyrians took to seeking out the treasure. Soldiers dispersed throughout the caverns in a rush, penetrating every last corner. Finally, one called out,
Got it! Got the treasure! Right here! Treasure! Shiny stuff!
A number of steel-reinforced chests lay up against the cavern wall. Meve blew the dust from the lid of one and lifted it with some difficulty. She had hoped for gold and jewels, bars of Mahakaman steel at the least. Instead, she saw thousands of time-tarnished copper coins with a hole through their center.
What's this bloody crap? Tokens of some sort?
Aye, that's right. Holy Goldens, we call them. They're, currency in Mahakam. Get our wages in them. Use them to cop victuals and hooch.
What of arms, armour, tools?
Nah, all that's given to us. Clan provides it. Is that what you need? Weapons? Oh, feel the Egypt now. Brought you here for no reason.
Yet these tokens, they can be exchanged for other coin, can they not? Temerian orens or Novigrad crowns?
Aye, doable in theory, but not at all clever. Rates are crap. See, the elders keep 'em low to make life difficult for dwarven folk, discourage 'em from leaving Mahakam.
What's this? Common dwarves use no gold? You cannot be serious.
Yet I am. What good's gold to them? Clan gives them all they need, and victuals and hooch beyond need they get for tokens.
Yet you trade with humans. Gold coin you take for your goods, the coin must serve a purpose. What is it?
We hoard it all. In vaults. Great piles. Down bottom lie ducats dating from the reign of that dozy ham-shanker King Dagrid.
And you do not put it to use, acquire anything for it? Then it's true what folks say, that you love gold too much to part with it. Hoard it for pleasure, as dragons do.
Point of fact, that there's pure drivel. Gold's a metal like any other, just yellow. We hoard it for our safety.
Your safety? I fear again, I simply don't follow.
Couldn't it be simpler? Soon as human folk get it in their heads we's a thorn in their side, we'll spend it. All of it, in a jiffy. Excess coin supply, that's called. Matter of days, gold'll be worth less than sawdust. And you're tossing banks and economies, bam, on their arses. There'll be nothing left of them. They'll cave in faster than a mine shaft with rotten props. Why are you all ogling me? With human folk for neighbours, we dwarves got to be damn vigilant, as sheep round wolves.
So how can these tokens serve me?
We must trade them. Even should we get a pittance, it will be something. The soldiers demand their pay.
Ah, your bum's out the windy. Fighting men want full dixies and tankards of hooch. Coin's but a means to that end.
What do you suggest then?
As I've been saying, the tokens we use to purchase nourishment and mead, and what you've got in those chests, why, that'll do to fund a feast the likes of which Mahakam's not seen since Brewer was sworn in as Elder-in-Chief. The fighting men'll eat and drink their fill, carouse about and forget their due and pay right quick. And invite the local dwarves to feast with you, and the clans'll look kinder on you too.
Caution be damned.
Your Grace, I feel obliged to remind you we are at war with Nilfgaard, and every copper...
Should go to building our army, I know. But we live but once, Reynard. Sir Gabor, take the tokens, and arrange me a feast so grand that Ebdahi himself shall hear us revel.
As Meave's force could not possibly fit in a tavern, the feast was laid out in a storehouse. Crates arranged in rows served as tables and benches, while the windows were festooned with lion's foot and pasque-flower. Great barrels of mead, cognac, and vodka were rolled in, and when the soldiers saw this, they broke out in cheers and laughter that lasted till dawn.
Pour us another round, you lovable Lyrian bastards!
For he's a jolly good a jolly good dwarf.
There was food and drink enough for the dwarves of the pass, who, with Meave's men, raised tankards in hand and voices in song the night through. To see them sharing tales and playing cards, one would not believe that anywhere down the mountains, through woods and across plains, humans and dwarves might, for the softest slight, leap at each other, murder in their eyes. Riding past a mine, Meave noticed a group of miners gathered around the entrance to a shaft. Frost had settled on their moustaches and beards, suggesting they had been there for some time. The Queen summoned Gabor and asked him to determine the reason for this sit-in. He returned after a few minutes and announced the most curious thing.
They're waiting for the knocking to stop.
Meave's frown prompted Gabor to explain in greater detail.
According to our laws, dwarves can't go into a mine if there's knocking coming from inside. We're obliged to wait for the ruckus to quieten down.
Ah, yes. Our own miners share this superstition.
Reynard interjected.
They say the knocking is that of a treasurer gnome, a kind of mine ghost.
With all due respect, your miners are dimwits,
Gabor said, patting Reynard on the shoulder.
Knocking means an imminent and abrupt discharge of the potential pliable energy of rock formations. In other words, ye ken, a rock burst. Except usually it's all done in a day or two, whereas these lads have been waiting going on 2 weeks. Foreman's grown impatient. He'd like to send someone down the shaft, have him see what's at issue, but, well, the code forbids us from doing anything of the sort.
If in this manner I can gain favour among your brethren,
sighed the Queen, dismounting.
So be it. I shall descend and see what the problem is.
The shaft was too narrow to fit an entire army, so Meave and a small unit of men entered the mine, miners' lamps in hand and hearts in their mouths. The rhythmic knocking coming from the bowels of the mountains, distorted and multiplied, was unnerving. Soon the company arrived at the place that seemed the source of the knocking. Gabor put his ear to the rock and listened for several moments in silence, then struck the wall with all his might. The wall crumbled with a crash, opening a passage into another corridor, from which sprang numerous foes. Both sides were surprised. Both fought in the weak light of torches, nearly down on hands and knees. In the end, the Queen emerged victorious, and as soon as she had returned her sword to its sheath, she asked the new prisoners a question that was on everyone's mind.
Who the devils are you?
The captives looked at each other in disbelief, as if before them stood a ghost. Finally, one of them managed to choke out a response.
Your Highness, we're your subjects.
Meave recognized the accent at once. The men came from Rivia. But what were they doing so far from home? According to the prisoner's account, after the Nilfgaardians' invasion of their kingdom, terrible poverty gripped the land. Seeking bread, some desperate inhabitants had gone to the mountains of Mahakam, engaging in wildcat mining in search of precious ores. Without asking the dwarves what they thought of this,
You know yourself, my queen.
explained one captured Riv.
They guard their treasure real jealous-like, don't care a whit about the suffering of others. They see us starving down in valley and don't lift a stubby finger.
Sadly, the Rivians had dug close to existing corridors. When Gabor destroyed the wall that stood between them and the dwarves, they were convinced they were being attacked by monsters, so they raised arms in self-defense.
Maeve, 'tis a tough nut to ken,
said Gabor.
but let's nae kid ourselves. These men are thieves, and we must hand them over to the Mahakaman Guard.
So they may do what? Sentence them to hard labor, or hang them at once?
Said Reynard, his usual calm shaken and his voice raised.
These are your subjects, Queen. They coveted their neighbours' goods, true, but only because they had nowt themselves.
The foreman wished for the knocking to stop,
said the Queen.
and so it shall. As for you, go back to Rivia, and tell all their queen shall soon return, leading an army.
The grateful Rivs quickly packed up their tools and left the mountains. Meve had no doubt Bruva Hoog would soon learn of the affair and would certainly not approve of her decision. Yet she preferred to face the Elder's wrath than send her subjects to a dwarven prison, or possibly to their death.